What? And what do you think happened to your chavrusa? And no, did you tell him about it? Why didn't you call him about it? Disappear. Can we rely on you? Yeah, it doesn't work like this. And look after him. What do you think happened to your Okay, the siyata d'shmaya. So we're going to start with the Ritva. In the papers we gave out the Ritva. Ritva, everybody has?
Yes, sir.
The Ritva people have?
Yes, sir. We got it.
Good, you got it.
Yeah, Beryl went to Chutzlars this morning.
Yes, told me.
So, let's see.
The Ritva says, והשלוקויס, פירוש קודומו שבישלו גוי אפילו בכלים כשרים, anything that a goy cooked, even kosher vessels, ומסקונה דגמורה, the conclusion of the Gemara, the Isur the Rabbanon was a rabbinic Isur, משום חסו because of marriage. ועובדה עם אלקטוני הפת והשמן והשלוקויס, since the Mishnah wrote bread, oil, and cooked food, מכלל דכל חג, גזירה בה בנפשו, אבס, must be that each one is a decree on its own, by itself. And the decree of bread and cooked food will not be decreed in one time. That's why they put oil in between. Here, the papers here. You have one you can take from here. Bishul Akum Aleph.
Yeah.
No, that's Patakum.
Could we read a little bit slower?
Yes, it's a slower, yes.
I didn't follow what you just said.
Rabeinu Tam. I'm reading the Ritva. Three lines on the bottom, on the top. V'das Rabeinu Tam, the pin of Rabeinu Tam, ki al Shlakot gozru tchila. On the cooked food, they made a decree first. Sharei usvurim, because they were holding, but Gemara d'Isur Doraisa. Since the Gemara held that Shlakot is Isur Doraisa, must be was the earliest gzeira. Al Mogzera Kadmonisis. So must be was a very early decree. The Afalpin, even though she goes all Shlokos, even though the early decree was on cooked food, lo nichlal pas bichlolom. Bread was not part of that. The Avalgal, that even though the pot yesh boy mishum bishul, even though bread has in it cooking, baking is considered cooking. Afalpiken, even though so, eno nichlal beloshon shlokos, is not included in the language called Shlakot, cooked food. Velo beloshon bishul goyim, not in the language of cooking of goyim. Kedamrin me beitza, like the Gemara in beitza says, page 15b. Einofi melala ofu even evashim avushon. You don't bake only on the bakes. You don't cook only on cooked. Means if somebody starts to bake, he continues to bake. And to cook, he continued to cook on Yom Tov. Starts with Erev Yom Tov, and that's called Iruv Tavshinim. So it says you don't bake only what has been baked already. You're finishing it. You don't cook unless it's been cooked already. Part of it's been cooked. So you see, the Gemara divides baking and cooking two different things, two the categories. All this is the words of Rabeinu Tam. The Achiken, and afterwards we made Talmidei Shammai V'Hillel in the days of the students. And Shammai V'Hillel, Gozru alapad bichlal yitches dovo. They decreed on the bread part of the 18 things. Ve'evi Rabeinu Tam zal odrai ledvorov. And Rabeinu Tam brought another proof to his words. What is his proof? She'ein pat bichlal shlokos. Bread is not part of cooked foods. Since the Gemara by us wants to say, the Isur Shlokos Doraisa, the cooked food of Goyim is also Doraisa. In the Chsiv, as it says,
Cause them to compare it with one thing, but they did the
right? This all repetition. I'm reading it, this whole thing, because there's some chidush in here, that's all. And he says, Midechsiv, as it says, the Abba Mina was, that is Doraisa. Midechsiv, oichel bakesef tishbereni. Food with money you're going to buy from me, and mayim bakesef titli, and water with money you give me. So there's a hekesh mayim to oichel. Ma mayim shol nishtanu mebirosan. What about water that didn't change from his creation? Aledeau through fire. Also bread didn't change through fire. So if you have to bake or cook, it's a change. It says in the torah fire. And the Rabeinu Tam as a kasha. Why the Gemara is very simple. If the source is a hekesh mind to food, there's no fire. Fire is baking and cooking both. So why we only have a gzeira on cooked food, not on baked food? Elovadai must be for sure. Just a kasha doesn't say the word fire. Must be Elovadai midoloi pachino noch etzin gemor in eso michlal da'afio eino bichlal bishul. Baking is not part of cooking. You with us, Silverstein? Did you learn the Gemara a little bit? Not yet. You have to learn the Gemara and understand well. But I'll show you later.
What's the kasha of the Gemara?
The Gemara says how you learn the hekesh between mind to oichel. The same way mind didn't change by fire. Also, the type of food that you can buy from Goyim, that the Jews going to buy from Edom and Moab when they travel in the desert. Only type of food is similar to mine, with no fire in it. No fire. No, the fire didn't change it. Normally, fire changes. Mine doesn't change. That's why. The same way water doesn't change by fire. Also, food that the fire didn't change them. Could be. You can have fire, but it didn't change it. Why? It doesn't say in the Torah fire at all. Since it doesn't say in the it doesn't say in the Torah fire, so how can you make a hekesh the same way water that didn't change from its creation through fire? Also, food doesn't talk about the barometer of mind. Doesn't say that the fire didn't change by fire. It's all true if you put in the word fire, but since it doesn't say in the Torah any word of fire, so this barometer of fire is not a barometer. That's the most kasha. No. No, there's no hekesh. The hekesh doesn't define food by us. You want to say food is like water. Like water what? Water is food, sustains your life. Food also, but don't say the same way fire doesn't change it. Also, food you can buy from Goyim is only food that fire didn't change it. Doesn't say any word in the Torah of fire in water. You say that's the barometer of the that checks it, that defines it. Yes, even fire that changes it could be still considered food. And it's still hekesh to water. You can say this sustains your life. It also sustains your life. Chai nefesh or other things. Who says the barometer that measures or defines the hekesh between water and food is fire. Doesn't say the word of fire. The Torah doesn't say the word fire. So now, Rabeinu Tam is a kasha. Why the Gemara didn't ask a better question? Instead of saying, doesn't say the word Torah fire, we said according to you that you learn Shlakot Doraisa from a hekesh, so bread should be too. And why bread is the Rabbanon? And bread is definitely the Rabbanon because the Gemara says in Masechet Shabbos that bread is one of the 18, Pat Akum is one of the 18 gzeres of Tamid Shammai V'Silim. Elavadai midoloi pachino nochi must be for sure. Since the Gemara in eso, michlal da'afia in michlal bishul must be baking and cooking are two different things, and not the same thing. Ve'ein zuraya. Yes, go ahead.
If it doesn't say or, so it comes out that the mind that we're talking about, there's no or. So you say also that they were able to buy from
the Edoim and Moav, yes. Right. You can't eat it, right? More of what? I know, but you don't have proof for that. You can't bring me a verse in the Torah now to buy food from Goy that is cooked from a hekesh of water to food. Mine to the hekesh between mine to food. Because it doesn't say in the Torah that the definition of mine is fire. It's that changed the creation. Right. That's Morris Kasha. Right, doesn't say anything about it.
problem to state there's no fire. The 3 steps before that, the Gemara, the only problem is the price of that you can do. So look, it goes up to the price and then learn from the custom.
How? Well, how do you learn from the book? That's it. No shinui through fire. Yeah. No shinui, but he took the word fire. Right? So we know the way the rabbis made the Gzeira, Shinu is not a problem. Fire, the Shinu through fire is a problem. So you can't learn this deen, this Gzeira of Shinu by fire, of cooking, which is Shinu by fire, that you cannot learn from the Torah. What kind? No, but the Braisa says. The Braisa says Shinu by fire. That's what the Gemara brings a proof. I know. This is asking a different question. First was Shalom Aleichem. What is your name? Jay. Jay what? Spock. Yeah. You involved with us? Oh, good.
The Gemara is going to say in the first Braisa that or, if there's a human in the or, then it's awesome. It just said, it just sort of.
No, without fire, the Gemara says not possible because chitin v'asan kloyois is muto.
That's not fire.
So it didn't change from his creation. So it has to be changed from his creation through fire. If without fire, chitin v'asan kloyois is muto. So it's not enough that it will change; it has to be changed from the creation. So Moshe says, there's taking wheat and grinding it, taking wheat and putting it on fire, or taking wheat and grinding it and putting it in water and bake it. So then the fire changes the creation. The Gemara says it. Water doesn't change how much creation to cooking.
Well, how do you know if Shabbos is cooking after cooking with water?
There's nothing changed.
It happens, not
So let's continue on. Ve'ein zurai. I'm reading here in the Ritva 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines on the top. Ve'ein zuraya, 10 lines on the top. There's no proof. Though afilo div Rabeinu Tam, even according to words of Rabeinu Tam, that what? That bread and oil and cooked food are 3 different gzeiros, and the gzeira of food, of cooked food, of goyim is a very early gzeira. Okay? And he brought a proof. We had that cooked food is a gzeira, is also midoraisa. And bread was not part of it, otherwise the Gemara should have knocked it out of saying, instead of saying, it doesn't say the word the Torah fire, should have said, according to you, bread should be also isul dorais if you learn it from the posuk of the hekesh, water to cook water to food. Comes the read when he says ve'ein zuraya. That's not a proof. Though afilu Rabeinu Tam, because even Rabeinu Tam nami tik shlakot. Even according to you, you have a kasha. Now you want to say bread is not part of water, it's not part of cooked food. You didn't run away from the problem. Amaylo parchino mipat Do bekro lo iksiv shlokos. Velo bishul velo eloichen. Forget about the Gemara's definition of fire. The Gemara has a kasha, doesn't say the word fire, and the Torah fire, and the Gemara should have asked about bread. No. You have a different problem. Now that you hold bread is not part of cooked food, according to you, that you learn cooked food is doraisa, good. And bread is not part of cooked food, but that's an exegesis chazal. You have a raya from the rabbis are part of that. But that can we have a kasha from the Torah? Since in the Torah doesn't say cooked food, it doesn't say cooked or food, it doesn't only say food. And not only that, pat oichelu and bread is food. So in the Torah says there's a heck between water to food. Food includes everything. It doesn't say how do you make the food, it says food. As a result. It's a food. Any food, even baked bread, cooked food, or raw food is all food. So it's all part of that you cannot buy from going. Let it be doraisa. Yes. By definition, we have to say the bedin hu the matzinu ifrachach. Really, we could have asked that kasha that bread should be part of that. And the nichel emivach tfei midi uksim. The Gemara asks something else, chosen something more. Just says there's no fire written in the post. וגם רבינו יוינו ז"ל כך פירוש של רבו יסוד, פירוש של רבינו תם. So therefore he says no raya than Rabeinu Tam, but Rabeinu Yoino also explained from his rabbis like Rabeinu Tam that cooked food and bread are two different gzeros. Okay, but we have his raya is not a raya, right? But it's a svara, and a lot of rabbis following that svara the Ritva says. Ve'yoiv time el milsan, and the Rabeinu Yoino gave a svara to his statements. Ki batchil in the beginning. In the beginning, they didn't want to decree on bread only on cooked food because it's a livelihood. Everybody relies on the livelihood of bread on the baker. Rather than cooked food, people don't rely on the chefs and things like that. They eat at home. But bread, everybody that's a livelihood, they rely on the baker. And afterwards, afterwards they saw that the Jewish people need more fences, more decrees on them, on this subject. They saw that there are Jews are getting close to going because of bread. Goes all of the main decree on it too. What does it say in the Tana? Why the Mishnah says bread before cooked food? Was a new decree, much closer to the Tanaic times. So therefore, Yosef Chaviv Wagner, it was more favorable, and he wrote it first. Instead of saying he wrote it first month earlier, no, Rabeinu Tam is right, like the Rabeinu Yoino, that definitely bread is less of a svara to make a decree, because needed people live and rely on it. It's a livelihood people rely on bakery of going. So that's why it doesn't make sense not to make exer on it. But when they saw it's not possible, there was a key between Jews and Goyim through bread, made a decree. And so why the wrote it first should be written last because it was decreed last? No. They wrote it first because it was chavivale. Was what chavivale? Favorable to them. Because it was a very new gzeira chadosho. That's what we wrote first. Aval Arav Rabbi Moshe Zal, but the Rambam, bless his memory, he said, I don't have to come on to the words of Rabeinu Tam. Look how he learns the Rambam. Elavada, rather for sure, Alapad goes Rutchila. According to the Rambam, they made a decree on bread first. He will explain, because it's cool, a big kiruv. Because people live on it, it's a big kiruv. We learn in our Mishnah first, bread. Because although it's a livelihood, and it's hard, but it's much more common, the connection between Jews and Goyim through bread. Bala Shlokois, and on the cooked food, like goes who didn't make any decree. The lays Bekirum Kolai, because there's not such closeness, bring people close so much, like bread. Less. Achreiken, and afterwards, they saw, afterwards they saw that they need to make a decree also on cooked food. They made a decree on that too. Why the Gemara asked the question, how do I know what's the source of cooked food? The Gemara didn't ask this question by bread. Must be that bread is the Rabbanon. It's in a different decree. And he says, time of the milsa. You know what's the reason? Bread. The Gemara didn't ask, what's the source like Shlokos? So the Shlokos like a kuv gulai. By cooked food, there's also such closeness between people. Was looked at the Gemara looked like it's not proper to make decree on cooked food. Because of marriage. And the Gemara says, no, maybe it's the rice anymore. If there are no, you have to say the Rabbanon, the rabbi's decree. This is right. So the Ritva was basically saying that bread and cooked food. So machloikes, the shoinim. According to Rabeinu Tam, has two different categories. And Klogos is being decreed first. And the Ritva says, yes, I agree. In the name of Rabeinu Yoyim, many other Rishonim agree to Rabeinu Tam. And they say it's two decree, and the reason is bread adarabbe. Bread is much more strong because we live in it, and they rely on the bakery of a going. So they made the decree, and Shlokos is less of connection. So the Svaga was not to be Korean Shlokos, and only later on they put Shlokos. Instead of saying Shlokos is first, then the other bread is opposite. Bread is first, and Shlokos later on. This is the Rambam.
I think that Abraham Avinu says bat v'amela, and then ve'lavakad. No, that's the bishul that
What?
Abraham invited them to bat.
Yes.
And after ve'lavakad.
Right. Bread is the most important. Bread is the fundamental.
And the Torah says, but the man.
But by Avraham Avinu we broadcast. Okay. Okay, אבל רבינו, okay. ומי הוא מה שכוסם הרב ז"ל? However, what the Rav wrote, שאילו גוזרו על השלוקס בתחילה. The Rambam holds, or the Ramban holds, if they make a decree on cooked food first, אף הפת הייתה בכלל. Even bread was part of it. גם כן מזבשילים מתבשיל של גויים. He learns that bread is also from cooked food of goyim. כדאמרי ירושלמי, says ירושלמי, ופת למי תשלילי גויים הוא, bread is not part of cooked food. So the Rambam says really cooked food and baked bread is one thing. One category. Just baked bread was more of a shchiach that made exer first, and Shlokos is less shchiach that makes it less. But really cooked food and bread is one thing. And there's Yerushalmi, the Yerushalmi says, baked bread is not cooked food. Zeino mechuva. He says that's not clear. She'ein derech hoylem nichlo yispal l'shlokos. V'lo bichlal loshon bishul. It's not the way of the world to include bread part of cooked food, and not part of the language bishul. When I say cooked food, I talk about cooked food. Bread is something else. Umiu, however, next paragraph. מה שכתב הרב ז"ל, what the Rambam wrote, שאילו זה אינו מסחבר. The Rambam wrote that that if they were made a decree on cooked food, bread was part of that. Not true. V'gam en ta'amam shaveh. The taste, the reason of bread and cooked food are two different reasons. The Shlakot is gzeira asher yocholim la'amabot. Cooked food was a decree that you could stand on it. Tfei much more, me part from bread, shechai nefesh, a livelihood. The custom of people to rely on bread on others. Okay. So we just summarized the opinion. The machloikis, if cooked food and baked is one thing, Rabeinu Tam is two different things. It's like early gzeira. And the Ritva, Ramban, Rabeinu Yoino, all of them, and Rambam hold that baking and cooking is not one thing, it's two different things. And the bread was early a decree. And why they made the decree early on the bread? First, because sustains life. Since people living in it, much more common to fall on it. Base. See base in the paper? Betam akzeiro. So now we want to answer Rashi. So Baruch, you trying to give me answers, right? Steer and Rashi, right? So Ayin Rashi lametches avanav do matchil miderabonon, ve'le'el Rashi lamedei amud beit do matchil Shlokos in the Mishnah is steer, right? That we know. But Rashi and beitza at Zayin amud do matchil en b'im bishul enochim. Rashi says there, shegozu chachomim bebishul enochim mishum chadnus. There Rashi says the rabbis made a decree on cooked food of goyim mishum chadnus. And in Lamed Ches, in Avodah Zorah, he says maybe he'll feed you impure food. Says V'ayin Tosh Lamed Ches. The Tomal Rashi had warned Rashi. Why Rashi changes reasons? In the Mishnah, he says the reason is you don't like to cook food because you might marry the daughters. In the Gemara, the Lamed Ches, the Gemara says not to cook food because he might feed you. He might get close to him, and he will feed you, give you food and drinks, and then he will feed you impure food. The Jewish people should not be accustomed by him, eating and drinking. Will feed him impure food. So why Rashi brought two reasonings? So you see, Ayin Bach Yoredeh Simon. I'm reading the Bach. Yesh dvorim she'osu chachomim. There are things that the rabbis prohibit, even though they have no source from the Torah. The Perek and Ma'adim Kasal Kadaita Shlokos Midorais. In the Gemara, the Flamet Zayin, the Gemara Havamina, that cooked food is from the Torah. Milchsiv Oichel Baketzish Bereini Umayim Kam Umayim says food you buy from me in water. So we have an egg between food and water. Kamayim like water. The same way water didn't change from its creation through fire. Also food didn't change from its creation through fire. So which type of food you can buy from Goyim that the fire didn't change its creation? For example, if I took grains and I put it in the oven, it makes the grain sweet. So the fire changed to sweet, but it didn't change its creation. Yeah. Taste does not change your creation. Probably no. But if you change its tzur and all that through fire, bake bread before it's flour, there's bread. So tasty. It's different.
If I take put it in the honey, with the Arab system, they take olives and they put it in the honey. Can you eat it?
Cooked food with honey?
Arabs take
yes.
They cook it with honey.
Right. What's your question? What's wrong? You didn't change the bria of the honey? Same honey, right?
Same honey, and also.
And the button and the botnim is the same thing. Okay. Stam kli zam ben yomer. Okay. Let's see. You're saying very good. And this is really the McCoy of all this. Let's see. Or Poli the Gemara asks, Midi Uksiv doesn't say in the Torah of fire. And the conclusion is it's a question. Elo midrabanon, Gemara says really is also midrabanon, the Korah Smachta Ba'alma. The question is, now that he says the Rabbanon, does a Smachta dominate the way we define the Gzeiro midrabanon? You hear the question again. Again, the Gemara wanted to say it's a hekesh between fire, brood and bread and water. The Gemara said doesn't say word fire. So Gemara says you're right. It's the Rabbanon, but it calls Smachta Ba'alma. But now that I know it's a Smachta, what does a Smachta mean? Smachta means that the rabbis found a hint in the Torah to tell you that that's what it says, right? But it really is rabbinic. The base is rabbinic. They found a hint in the Torah.
To justify what they're doing.
Right. To justify what they're doing, they found a hint. Did the Torah really meant it? Maybe yes, maybe not. But the point is, the question is now the Smachta will dominate, will tell us the ofi, the character of the decree of the rabbis. Oh. Rashi says, with the Rabbonon, from the rabbis, Shelo Yisrael Rogil Etzu Machal Mishneh. A person should not be accustomed to him with food and water. The Torah says, don't buy food and water from who? From Edom. They wanted to buy food and water. So the Torah says they found in a Smachta. The Smachta, food and water, is not the same way water didn't change its creation from fire. Also, food didn't change creation from fire. No. It's the same way the Torah says, if you're going to be accustomed to eat and drink with a goy, he will feed you impure food. So the kosher, the Mishnah Pirish Rashi Atzmo Tam Shum Chasus. In the Mishnah Rashi said the reason don't eat cooked food from marriage, v'nire. That's what he answers. The Gemara Muchach, the Gemara is proven the Bekulam goes with they say it. Really, all three things, bread, oil, and cooked food, they made a decree because of the daughters. Smachta the Kroi, they rely on the hint in the Torah. He shouldn't feed you impure food. Why? That's why we don't permit the food only like water. Water didn't change from his creation through fire. Although there's no raya, because it doesn't say the word fire, but it's a smachta. So the smachta says the food, water didn't change his creation from fire. Also, food didn't change from his creation from fire. And therefore, we don't worry because fire didn't change it. But if the fire changes it, we worry for double tam. What double tam means bliois. Right. The Smachta tells you that it's not only chasnis. The Smachta tells you that you should not feed you impure food. Like water. Water didn't change to fire. Means there's no worry that it was a bliois. Bliot. Because there's no fire. Didn't change it. Also food, no change. But if the food changed through fire, that bliot came in through fire, so then you have to worry. Maybe you feed you impure food through the bliot. So therefore, the Smachta tells you, dominates the character of the Gzeira of Mishum Chasos.
The rabbis search for a prohibition of the Torah, כדי לאסור חסלוס.
That could be. Yeah. But the point is, why Rashi in the Gemara gave another reason of impure food? The answer is that we have really don't eat goyish food, cooked food, because you marry the daughters. But from the Smachta we learn that the worry the get is not only cooked food and you marry the daughters, there's also maybe impure food in the cooked food. And now we understand Rashi in the Mishnah. I want to die to the back. Rashi in the Mishnah says that the Gzeira is marry the daughters, and he says we're talking about kosher vessels. Look at Rashi. Rashi says in the Mishnah. Shlakot is in the Mishnah.
Which Rashi?
Rashi the flamen here on base, I think, right? 1 second. I reading Rashi Shlokos. Says kol dover shebishloi goy. Anything that a goy cooked, even if a vessel, pure vessel, which means the rabbis prohibit even if the vessel is clean. But the Smachta that told you that you're not allowed because there's another reason. If the vessel's not clean, it will feed you double tome, and that's what it says. Like water, same way water didn't change its creation through fire. Also food, the fire didn't change its texture, and the taste is the same. But if the taste is not the same because swallowed non-kosher food, you cannot eat it. You cannot eat for another reason. 2 reasons, yes. Through the Smachta, we get to another reason.
It would look at the next Rashi.
What? This is it's a little bit dog cooked. What?
Look at the next Rashi. Dagim.
Okay. What are you saying there, Chaim? Right. I agree. He's just trying to answer Rashi. That's the answer of the Bach. But there's other answer of Aruch HaShulchan, which I want to read it. The Ayin Aruch HaShulchan. Roi v'poisim kosmu. Majority of the poskim wrote, but Tam means to Shlakot from chasmus. You're not allowed to eat cooked food because of marriage. Yesh me Rabeinu Tam sholech inu dovo risu. Agoy soshi sham b'shem Rashbam and Rashi. The Mishnah. Rashi Mishnah sham kosa mishum tchadmus. Upo gemore kosa dovo risu ein shom. Ve'ef shom. He wants to answer Rashi. Passel. Shetai mohu. The reason of Rashi is lamri kilu bepadolo b'shlokois. Why do we lenient in bread and uncooked food? By bread, the rabbis broke the decree, right? And by cooked food, they didn't. He says, "Mishum the Shlakot is shnei taimim." But cooked food, there's 2 reasons. The Jews couldn't hold on to the bread, and they matir it in the field. And if there's a bakery of goyim and no bakery of Jews, because by Shlokos there's 2 reasons. But it doesn't apply the second worry. Maybe you feed you something else. Why? By bread you can see very clear what's inside of it. Not by cooked food, we don't know what's inside. We're not strict on your cooked food, not in bread.
How can you see what's in bread? It's a solid thing.
They could, but it's less. By bread, more you can see what is inside. By cooked food, you don't know what's inside. More, it's less to see. What?
You can only see what's outside of the bread.
Good question.
You can't see the inside.
What are you saying, Reb Chaim?
You can't see inside of the bread.
It's true. But if you want to realize, you ask the question, I'm giving you answer. But if I open the bread, I see what's inside.
That's not.
But if you open the cooked food, you don't see what's inside. It's all the change colors and mixture. You know what's inside.
What? They could have used chafe wine to cook with, even.
Well, who knows what? That's the normal. I'm talking about the normal, the classic case. Brazil, you could.
Depends on the dynamic.
It's much more simple food, we call it. And the simple food is a classic way you can right away see. But by cooked food, they say only God knows what's inside. They say there's a joke that says only God knows what's inside the food. You won't eat it. Oh.
I tell people sometimes when they go to restaurants, some really religious people won't eat out of their house because they can't be somek on them skiach.
Right?
People bring in.
There's a famous saying, when you eat, very tasty food, and you know what it's made of, it says only God knows what's inside. You heard it? You don't want to know.
You don't want to know what's in
But Zelsi shopping with this, we have a very simple understanding.
Yes,
Everybody asked, why there's two decrees? Bread and cooked food. We have every. I had to say, those two decrees. We said Rashi shopping. She knows why. It's really two different degrees. Because Shlokas has two reasons, and cooked bread is only one. So that's why we wrote it two, not because what is early Gzeh, what is later, and no. Shlokas has two reasons, and bread has one. But he's not explaining where Rashi got this one. So you can say the Bach too, because the Ekesh brought this idea of this Dovot. What do you want to say about it? 1 second, Rabbi, yes. 1 second. The Rabbi Gavriel, this. Yeah. Panada, right? Chunk in the bread. Yeah, but all those things, it's cooked food in the bread. But bread, there's nothing inside. If there's any taste, you see. No, otherwise not bread. It's panada. It's a bakery. It's mezoilis. What's that? Not bread. Bread is simple. A little bit, maybe they smear chazir, oil on it. Those two things, but there's nothing inside. Simple bread. And if you do it, you see right away. What do you say?
The Goyim cook with butter. They cook
Right.
meat with butter all the time. And
What do
then
you
you
want to
can,
say after other people speak? I know. Ingredients, preserve it. Okay. That is different. But normal bread, it's simple. When I was in Bulgaria with the boys in Yeshiva, but no, it wasn't Bulgaria, it was Georgia, and all the boys they fought me. Why we cannot buy bread? It's all simple. Look, there's flour and simple canola oil and some sugar and water. And what's the problem? So I said, let's see all the ingredients. We went inside the factory. It was a small little bakery for a private person. And they saw, they put in some powder. What is this powder? What is this? So I convinced them they can't just touch it. Okay, we'll stop here. I see that they, here, okay, the Amud Beis is bringing the Beit Yosef. Okay, we're going to see more. I want to see Amud Beis, the Beit Yosef, the Shach, the Brichonosh, that we start talking about different types of cooking and bread, the difference between them, aloch and ma'aseh. Okay, bread which has food inside, cooks food, etc. It's the aloha. So I want to work on the aloha this week. We should learn all this page. Also, we're going to print out the Shulchan Aruch with the poiskim. Shulchan Aruch, Mechaber, Hamo, Shach, Taz, Pischei Tshuva, etc. We have to receive the poiskim.